president today.
Seamless,
our panel is back. Also joining me is Congressman Raul Grijalva, an Arizona Democrat who is a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Congressman, thank you for staying up late and for joining us this evening. You heard our panel here talking. Mark Preston brought up a point specifically saying there is no way Congress is going to appropriate money, that much money to build a wall, especially when we're $21 trillion to $22 trillion in debt.
The debt and the demands on the federal budget to make some real investments in this country are going to be part of what this next Congress has to deal with. And I think that, you know, this whole enforcement, only this kind of fantasy symbolism of we're going to build this great wall all across the whole southern border, it's just that, you know. And I thought very telling was the meeting with the president of Mexico, Peña Nieto, and I thought the President Peña Nieto looked weak, and he was more of a stage prop for Trump. And at the end of the day, when he was giving his speech today, he said they don't know what they're going to pay for it, and we're still going to build it. And so the whole point of that trip was to stage something that made Trump look better. I thought that was really sad and cynical to watch, and Peña Nieto walked right into it, and
now I have his email address. All I need is the name.
Feeling the way you feel, why don't you think the president of Mexico? Why do you?
He's a legislator.
This guy out and instead tweeting
exactly.
Yes, he's a Democrat.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're left to who's
from Arizona. He's a congressman, Democrat from Arizona.
And to some extent, the president of Mexico. How do you guess? I think that the Mexican citizens of Mexico were asking for a direct apology.
Okay, there you go.
See that publicly, and a declarative statement from Trump. We're not going to pay for anything about that wall. Neither of those happened publicly, so we're left to conjecture and. Do you believe Trump? Do you believe the president of Mexico? Kind of a scenario. The demand was for him to do that in public.
You're in Arizona. You represent a constituency who said that they have issues when it comes to illegal immigration. You're at the forefront of it. Having heard this speech this evening, what did you think of it? Do you think he won Latino, Hispanic voters over people who may be on the fence about voting for Donald Trump?
No, not at all. There was some tease and some expectation that Donald Trump was going to give a speech today, a policy of great magnitude around the issue of immigration reform. All he did was double down on what he said when he started his campaign in the primaries. He doubled down. The 10-point plan was a lot of generalities, but essentially it was an enforcement-only process of deportation, expedited in some areas, and self-deportation in others, including dreamers. There was no effort to, as some people were saying, walk it back, moderate it. This was doubling down on the issue that has been the raw meat in his campaign, immigration reform, and particularly along the southern border and Mexicans. And nothing changed, and I don't think because there's no change, there is no shift in where the perception of Latino voters are regarding this man. Because we also see it's a civil rights issue. You know, the issue of race is undertone to this whole discussion of immigration, and Trump made that a big part of it. And for second, third, first generation Latinos in this country who are going to be voting, you know, the racial profiling that occurred with Arpaio, $50 million worth of claims, where citizens were racially profiled in his effort to enforce the bad immigration law that this state passed. It remained. That was, to many in the Latino community, it is immigration issue and the families that need to come out of the shadows effectively and rationally and legally, and the issue of civil rights and the broad brush that Donald Trump has painted on our whole community.
Okay. So what he's saying, Corey, here, he's saying that the wall is fancy. This is according to him. He says there was a lack of substance here. And it appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Congressman, is that the Trump campaign, or Trump, is tone deaf when it comes to dealing with minorities, especially with African Americans, and now with Latinos, especially on this issue of immigration.
Yeah,
do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
The citizen. Yes, I do. I think it's not only tone deaf, but cynical.
Okay, let him respond. Let Corey respond.
So with all due respect, Congressman, look, illegal immigration has been a systemic problem in the state of Arizona. There's no question about it. What we know is that a number of the municipalities have basically gone bankrupt because they have no way to fund and take care of the illegal immigrants that are coming into the country and taking the resources away from Americans. And that's a fact. They're not paying taxes. They're taking the money that they're earning illegally when they come across and sending it back to Mexico, and that's perfectly fine. And what Donald Trump has talked about is to pay for that wall. So we're going to make sure that if it's under the confines of the law, then we're going to monitor that money and take a piece of that so it's not able to do that anymore. Furthermore, what we know, if one illegal comes across the border, and it's Jamil Shah's son, or it's Kate Steinle, or it's anybody else that's killed, there should be repercussions. And I don't know what the value is, the dollar value that it put on someone's life that's an American citizen, but what I can tell you is, if the wall costs $10 billion or $20 billion and it saves one American life, I think that's a worthwhile investment.
Congressman?
You know we got
There's
him?
no price to a life, but...
What's it worth to save American life killed by an American
I
cop?
represent that southern border in my congressional district.
We got him.
And there's a history here. We can't ignore the history. And to shamelessly say that it is
What's the minute on that?
that occurred with Trump's speech today, that's part of
5 minutes.
demonizing of immigrants in general that he did today, and Mexican immigrants in particular. That's all. It's not based in fact. It is exaggerated comments that are made constantly on this issue. In Arizona, we passed the toughest law, and the Supreme Court, when it was the full court, declared 3/4 of it unconstitutional.
I'm sure the Congressman's in favor of taking the people in this country who are illegal aliens, who are convicted felons. I'm sure you're in favor of sending them back to their native countries, aren't you, Congressman?
Yeah, and as President Obama's been doing, that is the priority for ICE. That is the priority for ICE. To those convicted, those that are in the country to do harm and not good, that are not here, that they are a priority. Nobody disagrees with that. And that's been the policy of Obama.
The disappointing part, Congressman, is that the individual who killed Kate Steinle had been deported on 4 different occasions before he came back to the country, and then just arbitrarily killed a beautiful girl for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So the person was arrested, they were deported on 4 different occasions, and came back in. If there was a wall or tougher ways to get into the country, Kate would be alive today.
The empathy, there's no lack of empathy for that tragedy, okay, on my part or anybody else's part. But as I said earlier to you, there's a realism too, that when you talk about building a wall, 24 billion, 9 billion, use whatever number you want, and the reality is that it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because the same people that scream loudly about having to control our borders and enforcement only will be the first ones that say eminent domain, it's a taking, you can't use my property. On and on and on it's going to happen. So, to create this fantasy for the American people, that this fantasy of a wall is going to solve all the problems, including the tragedies that occurred, and they're awful, including all of a sudden everybody's going to be making $15 an hour and working well, that's all going to happen because Donald Trump is building a wall. I think we're underestimating, A, the intelligence of the American people, and B, the reality that we're living in this country. And I think that's what's the most offensive about it, and that's what's so cynical.
Congressman, thank you very much. Lots more to discuss with this issue.
Thank you.
Congressman, we'll be right back. We'll continue the conversation.
For people with heart failure, tomorrow is not a given. But Entresto is a medicine that helps make more tomorrows possible.
Tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow.
In the largest heart failure study ever, Entresto helped more people stay alive and out of the hospital than a leading heart failure medicine. Women who are pregnant must not take Entresto. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby.